Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Break the Limits Podcast. And I'm Daryl. And the purpose of this podcast is to really interview high achievers, to really understand their journey, their struggles, how they achieve their unique breakthroughs so that we can inspire you to get your own breakthrough as well. And today we have someone special. This person I genuinely look up to, and I'm very, very admiring from afar her journey. I'm very honored and humbled that she agrees to this, interview. Within just a short span of 1 year, right, she was able to achieve a business revenue of close to $12,000. And without further ado, I will allow her to introduce herself to you guys. Melissa, please.
Can call me Mel lah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm Mel, Melissa. I'm from Advisors Click, right? So it's a bit cliche, but I specialize in holistic financial planning. What I basically do is I chart roadmaps or financial roadmaps for clients or for anyone that needs some sort of guidance or clarity towards their milestones, right? And with this roadmap, I help them reach their desired lifestyle realistically and conservatively. And I'll say that what makes me maybe different is my preference to rely on numbers, because ultimately numbers don't lie, right? They're very objective, they're factual, there's no emotions, maybe a bit but yeah, not that much. And ultimately it paints a very objective and neutral picture for both parties.
Yes.
Yeah.
And share with us, the audience listening to this, right? How do you get into this business? What's your background actually?
You want the long or short story?
Go ahead, just share anything.
Okay, so I'm 29 this year, right? So obviously this is not my first rodeo lah. Prior to this, I spent 4 years in the government, right? If you look around the shopping malls, the parks, right, then you see the aunties, uncles exercising, right? That was what I used to do lah. I would organize the programs for them, right? So I was actually bonded, and I left after 4 years, but I didn't leave because my bond ended. I would say that in my last 6 months, I didn't enjoy where I was, because I changed teams, and it just didn't suit me very well. I think ultimately, I didn't feel like I was a valued member of the team or I didn't feel that the work that I did or my time, my effort, it didn't feel like I was contributing to anything. And likewise, I wasn't feeling appreciated So I think I was in a very bad place, like for 2 to 3 months. And then I started thinking about options mainly because my bond was ending. I guess I had the option to leave if I wanted to. But I had never entertained thoughts of leaving the government. So it was quite a dilemma because I spent like uni, my first 3 years thinking that I will stick here forever. I was happy comfortable, right? No reason to complain. Every day you clock in, clock out, you also get paid, right? But I think I wanted to do more I wanted to do more with my time, with my life. And I didn't believe that I couldn't find something where I couldn't actually value add to, right? So I had to think about what I wanted to do. And I think I was exploring a few things. I was even thinking about like joining the Air Force. Yeah, because that was like one of my options after A-levels. But I didn't want to sign away my life so recklessly So Air Force was out, and then I was thinking, should I go to another government agency? But then I would face the same problem, right? And then it'll be back to square one.
Yes.
I think around that time, this was back in like Feb or March 2021. I think that was when like everyone was super into crypto, right? There was like a whole crypto boom and everything. My brother like dragged me down the rabbit hole. So I did explore it for a bit. And I think because I was one of like the first movers in my circle of friends and whatever, a lot of them actually came to me for help or like advice. Basic stuff from like, how do you like set up an account? How does this platform work? Because it's still very new so no one really knows like what's the options available. And then once you set it up, what do you buy? How do you know what to buy? Like how do you see where things go and whatever, right? So because I was already in the rabbit hole, I just shared very openly and honestly what I did for myself.
Yep.
And I think by bringing value in that space, it like amplified the hole in my current job, right? And that made me realize, actually, why not do some sort of advisory, right? So then obviously you'll think of like insurance. But then of course insurance has its own stigma as well. But I would say that being 27 at that time, usually we would have met a lot of agents along the way, right? Because like you throw a stone, everyone's an agent. But for whatever reason, the 4 or 5 agents that I had met in that span of my working years, right? The funny thing is that none of them actually told me what insurance was about. And like the only time we met, right, was for me to purchase like something. Yeah, the usual. Hey, you want to buy this?
Yes.
Yeah. But then I had the pleasure of meeting my current manager during COVID as well. Cause Zoom, nothing better to do, right? So just listen lah. And she was the only one that actually broke down the 101 for me. And that was in that moment when I put 2 and 2 together, I realized that actually there's a lot that can be done in this space. But maybe we just hear too many bad stories, bad experiences. But if done properly, there is real value in it. Because ultimately, like in Singapore, we have so many things that we need to afford, right? Like everything is technically planned out for us. Like society tells us we need to have kids, we need to have a house, we need to have a car, blah, blah, blah. Right? All these things need money. And at the end of the day, like not everyone has the time, the knowledge, the interest to plan or chart it out properly. Right. So then actually that's where like financial planners, financial advisors, whatever you want to call yourself, like that's where we should come in. Right. And like even within my family, my parents retired like 10 years ago. So that is quite substantial, right? But I've seen firsthand how shitty financial advice can really screw you up in the future. Right. So I think with all these like personal experiences and like observations of the industry as a whole, I think that's where I saw the gap. Right. I was like, okay, I see a gap and it's actually quite exciting. Yeah. So it's quite funny how this little seed just got planted in my head. And I knew that if I didn't explore it, I would always think, what if?
Yes.
Yeah, so I decided to just bite the bullet lah.
And then take a leap of faith.
Yeah, leap of faith. So here I am talking to you.
and you see, previously you're telling me that you're in the government company, right? Government sector. And then now you're technically running your own business. There must be a huge transition or a period where you have to adapt. Share with us a set of challenges that you're facing during that transition period.
Well, honestly, huge is an understatement. I think the biggest thing was managing your own time. I mean, if you're in like a corporate job, right, you know that, okay, weekdays you have to wake up at like 7, then you go to work, you end at 7, then the rest of the day is yours, right? But then like when you transition into a self-employed industry, right, the amount of discipline you need has to be like 10 times. And flexibility is a double-edged sword. Because no one is technically telling you that, oh, you have to wake up at 7. I mean, if you wanted to, you can wake up at 10, 11. And I guess when I first joined, that's what happened to me. I was like, oh my gosh, shiok, I can sleep in. Like, no need alarm clock. I'll start my day when I wake up, right? So I think that was like the biggest thing at the start, when you wake up late and then you realize that, oh, actually half the day is gone. And then, you know, you will take some time to like get ready, get into the zone, whatever. Or maybe by the time you get up, you already have like things to go for, all that kind of stuff, right? And then you're not really left with much time to really do the work or to plan and to focus on other areas that make up this whole job. Right? So I'll say like the biggest or hardest thing at the start was discipline.
Discipline.
It still is lah. But now a bit better.
So what I'm hearing from you is that the irony, right? When you are running your own business, by right, you should have more time. But you're telling me that lack of discipline that cause you have lack of time for running the business. And share me, apart from that, right, what's your biggest challenge? Because I know when I was coaching you, when was that? April. I think there was an April period.
April 2022.
April 2022. There was within 6 months, right, you were able to achieve at least $100,000 in terms of revenue for business. And share with the audience, right, what was the biggest challenge that you're facing at that point of time in your career?
Okay, so in my first 6 months of the career, I hit 6 figures. And then when I met you, I think I was about there also. Then the question is, why did I find you, right? So I think despite the money that I earned, there were still a lot of things that were bothering me internally. Like I still couldn't shake off the feeling that I had to beg people. I had to beg. I feel like I was begging people to meet me, or to give me a chance to review their portfolios, or to meet up and just see if there's any opportunity to work together, that kind of stuff, right? Whether or not it's actually begging, I don't know, right? It's just how I perceived it. But it took a lot for me to always be out there, constantly prospecting, constantly opening conversations with people. And growing up, this idea of being rejected or failing, I think it's childhood trauma or Asian child syndrome. But yeah, it's not a nice feeling right? Because growing up, we associate it with a lot of negativity, right? And then we do whatever we can to avoid it, right? But when you're self-employed, there is no guidebook. There is no follow this and you will definitely succeed, or follow this and you definitely will not fall down. It doesn't exist, right? And the reality is that if you want to progress further in anything, you have to fail, because that's how you learn. But then how do I reprogram my brain to embrace that, right? It's I thought of this recently. It's quite cool.
Share with us.
So I was telling someone that this idea of embracing failure or chasing failure and rejection is telling yourself to run into a wall. Go and bang a wall, right? But then actually this wall, right, it leads you into Harry Potter's wall.
Oh, I love that.
The wall suddenly disappears. Correct.
Right? Yeah.
So that is exactly the feeling. It's you have to tell yourself to do something that is programmed to protect you from.
Yes.
But if you manage to do it,
you see a different dimension.
Love it. Yeah. So these were a few things that were bothering me and I think it was something that I had to reconcile, because I would say that money wasn't my driver at all for joining the industry, right? So even though the money came, but it doesn't bring me absolute happiness ultimately, I still wanted to find that sense of fulfillment, right? That sense of being appreciated for the work that I do.
Yep.
And to be able to connect with whoever I'm working with, But if I always see it as me begging, me being afraid of rejection, then it's impossible for me to feel that definition of happiness that I have for myself.
Understood.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing from your previous journey, actually, when you were leaving the government sector, you were underappreciated as well.
Yeah.
And then now you're being an advisor, you're making good money, but still there's this lack of appreciation, which keeps lingering on, right? And share with the audience, right? How did you overcome that rejection, the underappreciation? What clicked in your head suddenly that allowed you to do 3 times of your performance?
I think it was a lot of rewiring, right? I used to be the kind of person that I procrastinate and I hesitate to do things as long as I cannot see ahead, because I'm scared, right? I will never do something if I'm not 100% confident that it will be, right, there will be a success or it will be a yes. And then in my head, I'll be okay I approach another day, because then I can keep telling myself, or I can keep believing that, I still have this pool of people that I can always reach out to. And until the day I actually touch them, it's still an illusion in my head, then I feel better inside, right?
Yes.
So I think I had to switch it up a bit and realize that actually failure or being rejected, these are very objective words, right? And at the end of the day, they will just tell me what works and what didn't. And then I can move on with life. And the only way we learn is when we fail, or when we do an AAR and have a very honest conversation with ourselves.
Share the audience, what's AAR?
Oh, after action review.
Yes.
Sorry, very corporate. We have to be honest with ourselves, actually, what could have been done better? And then when you do that, it's to remove judgment of yourself, right? And don't do the self-blaming or you suck, whatever. No, it's just, okay, you tried this. Is there a reason why it didn't work? And then do better next time, lor. Then you just move on.
Yep.
Because when you're self-employed or when you're doing anything, the world is your oyster. It's really what you want to do, right? And then that people always say there's cause and effect. But there's no effect if you don't take action,
Correct.
Yeah. So I think this whole rewiring helped me see things a bit better, such that I took action faster.
Beautiful. And I just want to sum up first before the audience get confused with your journey and kind of lost, right? I just want to clarify some things, right? Whatever that Mel mentioned, right, was powerful. She said that it's not so much about, being stuck in where you are right now, overthinking and all of these things. She kind of beautified the idea of failures is that Harry Potter wall,
Yeah.
right? You think that this is something that I don't want to bang my head against, but what if it brings you to another universe, a beautiful place? That's one thing, one belief that helped her a lot. And the second thing she shared, right, was very powerful, right? She said that what if, right, if I never try in a career, if I never embrace that and I take the leap of faith, I would never know the outcome. So from a coaching perspective, I just want to highlight one thing, because the same thing that hold her back sometimes, which was regret. She kept thinking of what if. This time around, she know how to use it for the good, not for the bad. And that's kind of helped the epiphany, the breakthrough in her. Another thing that I want to ask you as well, right? Regarding that appreciation part, how do you overcome that?
Oh, that's a very good question. How did I get over it?
Yeah.
I think ultimately, like, I always believe that the work that I put out or the standards that I hold myself to is like, it has to be of quality, and I know that I'm genuinely value adding someone, right? And I realized that if you do the work, people will thank you lah. Yeah, people will know what you do. And after a while, like, I also look around, right? I know what my peers or like people in the industry are doing. And I really like internally reconcile that, oh, actually I'm doing more. I'm doing better. So I also internally appreciate myself lah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, but I guess it also helps that my clients thank me lah.
Yeah.
Right.
6 months ago, clients,
6 months ago,
first 6 months, they never thank you?
Not as much lah.
Not as much.
Yeah.
So did you verbally tell them that, hey, I really love it and I'm motivated if you were to appreciate my work? Do you explicitly, radically, transparently tell them
No
that?
lah, never. What
changed for you? Yeah, so what changed for you?
I guess like after a while, once you have enough time in the industry,
yes.
When you meet your clients or your friends more often, the appreciation will come naturally. And it also comes through like when they introduce me to their friends, their loved ones. Yeah. Then you really know that you're doing something right lah.
Yep.
Yeah. But thank you goes a long way in anything that we do.
For sure.
Yeah. So even if you're ordering food, you say thank you to the auntie, it also makes their day ma.
Yes.
Right. So I think it's the idea lah, like to know that actually whatever you did, they actually appreciated it and they actually value whatever you have done for them. Yeah.
I like it. I think it sounds like nothing changed in terms of the external world, rather.
Yeah.
But it's your internal paradigm that shifted.
Yeah.
Internally, the first 6 months you feel underappreciated, right? And that's why there was demotivation period. Hence, you're like, hey, shit, why am I doing this? And then you went to spiral in. But what changed for you is like, logically, that's where you bring your logical mind. It's like, hey, actually, people refer me. People actually appreciate me. My work is important. And people thank me.
Actually, I think I want to add on something.
Yeah,
like,
go ahead.
It's a lot about like your own personal perspective also. Like your intentions when you meet people.
I love this.
Your expectations when you do something for someone. If you always do something and expect something to come back in return, like then it becomes transactional, right?
Agree.
And then of course, if that was your expectation, and as all humans do, like if we fall below, if what comes back doesn't meet that, then we become disappointed.
Exactly.
And then that's when you start to like be
spiral.
You start to spiral. But then at least for me now, to me, I just see everything as an opportunity. And I'm grateful for it, right? Like I can be grateful that, actually someone approached me to even ask about this. Whether or not something like comes out from it, it doesn't matter.
Yes.
But I know that there was this connection. I had an opportunity. Then of course, if I want to go and think back, what could I have done better? Like why didn't it go further? That's another question altogether lah. But I have to focus on the good things ma.
Yeah, now you're making me curious because the first 6 months in your career, right, were you in that state whereby you're panicking, you're panicking, where's the next lead, where's the next sales? I'm reaching out, I did lower my pride, to reach out for sale. End up, you're like, reject me. That there's a disappointment because you have expectations. Would you say that was overwhelming you the first 6 months?
Maybe one of few things lah.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess it was the biggest thing, right? Because you never know, like, when you're starting out in this industry, right? You honestly don't know how things will pan out, right? Like, I don't think my story is a norm. It's not something that new joiners would immediately enjoy at the start, right? So I also had my fair share of like knocks and bungs. And I still remember like when I first started, I told myself, okay, I need to meet 7 people every week. So then I would keep texting people until I had 7 people to meet next week. Right. But then after a while, you realize that pool of people shrinking, not normal, right? And then of course, then that's where the panic kicks in. Like, oh shit, what am I going to do next? What can I do now? How do I make this sustainable? And that's the reality of this industry, right? Like, you have no stable pay. Sustainability is about ensuring you have people to always talk to meet or whatever. And if you don't find new people, then you're going to phase out lah.
Yes.
Right. And for me, like when I joined, I never gave myself a back door. Because people ask me like, hey, so if this doesn't work out, what will you do? And I said, I'm not entertaining that thought.
Beautiful.
Because the moment I do, right, I will not give my 100% what. Because then if I fail, I'll just say, never mind lah. I give myself 2 years. Then if cannot, then I do something else lah. But then what about the people that I met in the first 2 years?
Yes.
Right. So I never gave myself that option. But it doesn't stop or it doesn't change the fact that you basically live in fear and constant anxiety lah. And I couldn't turn off my brain. Right. It's not like office hours, after 7 p.m. I'm off office.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't work that way. Like every waking moment, you're always thinking about, oh shit, what am I going to do today? What am I going to do next week? Who am I going to talk to? What can I do next? Yeah, so many questions that were just like going through my head all the time. And it's so ironic, right? Because people then focus on the 6 months, 6 figures. But then there's so much more like underneath the entire journey. And if you ask me like, oh, was it enjoyable? Like I can't, there's no yes, there's no no.
Yes.
Yeah. So this whole like prospecting thing, rejection thing, at the start it was horrible lah. Yeah.
You can tell from her expression, right? So I just want to do a short summary first, right? So that I can really understand your journey, you see. From a coach perspective, right, I hear from you whenever you have faced challenges, but now I'm hearing from a listener's or audience perspective, right? It feels like you've gone through a couple of hurdles, you see. Like there was that fear of rejection. There's a lot of shame in yourself having to beg to someone else, begging someone else. There's a lot of overwhelming thoughts as well. There's a lot of over-analyzing it and now you're paralyzed by it.
Yeah.
And in fact, you also mentioned uncertainty. Where's the next lead going to come? I'm always constantly thinking about next different problems, right? 4 or 5 things handling at the same time. And then you mentioned the word that rewiring. Like you had a lot of rewiring to do because nothing on the external side, right, changed. You had the same skill set, you had the same company, same support system. And through that rewiring, you became this version. Can you share with the audience, right? What was that version looking like before you even go out there and, create some tangible outcome, right? That rewiring made you become this version. What was that version looking like for the audience to know?
Me as I was rewiring.
Yeah.
It was very emotional.
Was that your user state?
No lah.
Yeah.
I think by nature, I'm not, like everyone tells me I have a resting bitch face. Right? Like if you don't know me, you probably would never talk to me because I don't smile much. And by default, like I don't really let myself express or feel as much, right? But I think you can't really rewire until you get to the bottom of it, right? And I think it was a lot of like processing, and like going really deep into actually why am I so afraid of failing, right? Like why am I so paralyzed by it? It has to mean something, ma. Like it has to mean more than fail lah, right? Because if it was something that was constantly holding me back or something that was constantly like bringing me anxiety and like this inability to do anything, there had to be a huge mother load at the bottom of it. So as I was doing or going through this whole process, I guess I had to really sit down and ask myself these questions, right? See, it was so long ago, I don't remember what I asked myself. Yeah.
Slowly take your time.
Okay, I guess it was like, maybe it was like expectations of myself, right? I'm too hard on myself. Or like failing is not in my dictionary. But then, why can't I fail? What would that mean? Does it make me any lesser? No, it doesn't. Because nothing is black or white. Right? I think these were just like some of the questions that I had to reconcile, and ultimately it's like, how do I want to measure my progress or myself? Is it through an outcome or through a process? Right? Because if you want the outcome, then yeah, it's either you fail or you pass. It's either a yes or a no. But why can't I recognize myself based off my own progress? Like the fact that I tried. Because 3 years ago, that Mel would never have tried.
Mm.
But the fact is, now I'm trying every day. Isn't that something to be proud of? Or at least to be happy about? Right? Like, people always ask me, what do you want to achieve at the end of the year? And I always say like, I just want to make sure that I'm proud of the version that I am today.
Mm-hmm.
So these were the little things that were slowly changing in my brain, or like how I would perceive myself. And then it also goes back to the whole like value adding and being appreciated thing ma. Because thank you is like an outcome. But it's more than that one.
Yes.
If I were to shift it a bit and focus on the process, and I know that whatever I did is like solid lah. Whatever I did is solid, it is like really best interest, that kind of stuff. Can go and sleep at night. Then I should be happy with that outcome or that process. Yeah, so it was, you can see lah, I'm slowly shifting from a more like outcome measurement towards
a process
of like just taking things in my stride, being more intentional with what I do. And I think gradually it builds up, like it adds on, because once you see that difference, then it's like a whole new world also.
Yeah.
Because then suddenly like you're more clear, or like you're more focused on what you need to do to have a good day.
It sounds like what I'm hearing from you, right? It sounds like from $100,000 to that $300,000 mark, right?
Yeah.
You had to recreate yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like using brute force to get to the 100,000 because you're panicking, scared a little bit, right? How do I sustain this place? I'm in a new environment. And during that transition from 100 to 300, it seems that number one, you became a very different version of yourself. You, instead of the usual objective view, you became very emotional to understand the emotions at the root issues, right? What are the root issues? My relationship failures, my relationship rejections. You have to redefine those things. And now you look at it as a very, I would say, detached manner.
Yeah.
Rejection is rejection. It doesn't mean anything about me.
Yeah.
Right? Same for failures as well.
Yeah.
And that kind of gave you more courage to attempt.
Yeah.
Previously, you think a lot. And now with this rewiring, you kind of attempt a lot more, putting in more efforts.
Yeah.
And all of those things bring you to that place, that $300,000 results. So you just previously you also mentioned to us, right? There was these first 6 months, and that's where you're struggling. And then you mentioned the wiring process, right? What actually do you experience with the Help Break the Limits, right? That truly transformed this version that you are today, that help you with the remaining 6 months of 200K revenue?
Okay. It was quite a while back. So let me think a bit.
Sure.
I still remember that the first thing you asked me to do was this framework, right? Where like I had to list out memorable experiences in my life, past, present, and how it made me feel, right? So of course, these kind of experiences is like, wow, shit, I'm like opening Pandora's box, trying to remember all these things, right? But I guess that was really one of the stepping stones that helped me understand that whatever we experienced in the past, like it forms our mental state and our biases, right? Because things that happen when it leaves a negative feeling in us, right? Then moving forward, when we face a similar situation, then we tend to avoid it. Or we tend to react negatively, or we always assume the worst case scenario, which was exactly what I was doing, ma.
Yes.
Because to me, like rejection is the end of the world. Then it's like, it means like I'm worthless or whatever, to say to that extent. So doing that exercise helped me understand a bit more about, actually, maybe this is why I'm so, like, words like rejection and failures mean so much to me, more so than someone else. Right. And then it's about unpacking it, right? If to me, anything less than an A means that I'm not good enough, then how do we change this, right? So it's like so many layers. It's like, what do you firstly mean by good enough? Like, is it just that grading? Is it how you feel about yourself? But why does it mean that if you get an F or you get a B, you feel shitty about yourself, right? And then if you go down this rabbit hole and this train of thought, then that's where you see like or that's where I saw it, right? Which is, when someone says no to me it's like I failed. And it's the end all be all. But obviously it's not, right? And then I remember, I can't remember if it was you, but you said like, what's the worst that could happen or something like that. And then you really think like, what's the worst that could happen? They say no and then you move on lah.
Yeah.
Right? Because then you shift the power back. I shift the power back to myself. Like the power of how I see myself is still in my hands ma. If someone says no, it's okay, I move on, but I say thank you. And then that's it. There's no more like attachment to it. And then I get the opportunity or the chance to redefine it and say that, I did good if I tried. Because trying is something that is difficult to do to begin with. Then slowly like we start to reattach the wiring circuit
Yeah.
from A move downwards already, no longer A to here. Yeah. But it was this entire process, like it takes time, right? It takes time to talk to someone to really understand what is it in their past or like why is it that they're reacting to all these different triggers in this way. And that was what we did lah. That's what you helped me with because every week I'll go to you, challenges. I feel like this because this happened. Or then it'll be like, so why do you feel like this? How does it make you feel?
Yeah.
Right. And then we are so used to just saying like, I feel sad.
Yeah.
End of story. But there's more to it ma. It's like, what do you actually feel sad about? Sad is not an emotion. It's a feeling.
Yes.
Right? So once you dig a deeper, and I mean, these are things that I could never have done on my own. I don't think people can actually do this on their own because this is not a common train of thought to follow to begin with. Like no one teaches this to us in school. Our parents don't do it definitely.
Correct.
Right? You need a third party to actually keep poking holes in all these things to help you say it yourself. Because there's a difference from me knowing and me saying. And once there's someone to help you guide your thought process through this entire train, it's like as I talk about it, then I suddenly realize, like, oh shit, actually it's like that. Right? And that's what happened in most of our sessions, ma.
Yeah.
In the end, I like self-therapize myself. Because you ask me one question, and then I'll go on about, but then it actually doesn't mean that, blah, blah, blah. Then suddenly you come over.
Suddenly got the epiphany, right?
Yeah.
And how does this epiphany translate to business results? Give us an example so the audience can understand how important this is actually.
If you're not in a good state yourself, how can you expect yourself to do well for your clients? How can you expect yourself to be at your best if you don't feel your best? Or if you don't believe that you are the best?
Wow, that's profound.
If you believe that you are 6, people will see you as a 6 out of 10. Because it will come through in the way you do things. Because you don't have confidence. You don't believe in yourself. But people will smell it, right? You must believe that you are 10 out of 10 first. Before people will see it for themselves. Yeah, and I think that's basically what Break the Limits does. You all help people see themselves as that 10 out of 10. And to break out of whatever preconceived notions that they have of themselves. Or all these like self-limiting beliefs. Or even their own preferences that
I prefer cold calling.
Yeah. No, it's like you prefer cold calling, but then you're naturally limiting yourself. Right? You prefer cold calling because you find it paiseh to talk to your friends.
Correct.
But why do you find it paiseh?
That's the thing.
You find it paiseh. Why? Because you don't feel like you're good enough?
Yes.
You don't feel like you can do enough? Then these two things already highlight a work in progress for you. Right?
Correct.
Make yourself so damn good such that your friends will want to come to you.
Yeah.
Then you will never say you prefer cold calling anymore.
But most people find it uncomfortable to do the things that they are weak at.
Correct. So then it's away. Like, you want to stay in your comfort zone or do you want to
really be good?
Correct. If you always want to stay in your comfort zone, then you will always stay in that pond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well said. High five. Oh shit. So those of you, if you're listening to this part, I think this is extremely powerful, right? Whatever she mentioned. She just explain radical transparency for you guys to understand already. You can always be in denial and say that, yeah, cool, my preference is cold calling. But instead of really admitting the fact that you are in denial, hey, why am I not working on one market? Because of the insecurities lying underneath. But when she mentioned that you really go and confront it, look at it, stare at it, and then get the third party to really dig it out in you, that's where you have the epiphany, say, oh yeah, this is the true reason why I'm not doing it. And then you fix it, grow it, and that's where you can really master yourself, master your career, and master what your success in life as well. I want to hear from you as well, right? During that period, were there any pivotal moments, right, that truly gave a breakthrough in you, that shaped you to this version today? during that period, during that journey? Or even change a big shift in your perspective that you can share with the audience?
I guess the biggest change or the biggest thing that helped me the most was learning how to be more intentional, right? Because at the start, when you are like doing everything with brute force, right, you're like just battering through things and like doing what you feel you need to do. And then it's almost as if whatever you're doing is because something is pulling you, right? You're being put to do it. And you're being put in like so many different directions. Because
can you elaborate for the audience listening?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? Being put by different things? Maybe clients want you to do this. Managers want you to do that.
How do I explain it?
Yeah, slowly explain it.
It's like when you... Okay, let me think of an analogy.
Yeah.
It's like today, if your parents want to eat lunch with you, right? Then they ask you what you want to eat. Then you say, I don't know. Then they decide everything.
Yes.
Then you just go with the flow, right? But then what if they suddenly want to change direction? Then they go to like 10 different locations to finally decide where they want to eat. Versus you already know what you want to eat. Then you go straight there. So you made a choice.
Correct.
The first one is you kind of drag along. Then you just have to suck it up and go with the flow. Then maybe the place that they choose you don't even like to begin with. Yeah. So that's what I roughly mean, which is...
And how do you relate to your career?
Yeah, because at the start, when you join, right, you only have guidance from the people around you, like your mentors, whatever. Then you just do what you're told. Or you do what they have done before, and then you just follow everything. Or you cave into your fears, and then you prospect 100 people every day. But you're doing it out of fear. Not because you chose to do it. But because you feel like you have no choice. These are things that you have to do. Versus now, I think I'm in a place where I already know what needs to be done. Like when you have the clarity and focus, you know what needs to be done, right? And then everything I do is intentional because it has to help me get to where I want to be. So it means it will mean that I say no to things that don't benefit that cause, right? Because then I conserve like my energy, my time, my focus for the things that truly matter. Yeah, you have to learn to say no to shiny objects or say no to like things that people might want you to do just because they've done it before, but it might not be your cup of tea. Yeah. So I think like why this is so important, right, is it helps you, I won't say like it prevents burnout, but it helps you regulate yourself. Because if you spend your whole life or like all your time just doing whatever people tell you to do, also quite sian.
Of course.
You'll feel tired for whatever reason, but you probably feel like, oh, you got no like autonomy, you got no control.
Yeah.
But then on the flip side, now I have so much control over everything that I do and over my time.
Yes.
So if I had to say like what's the difference between like my first 6 months and the entirety of last year, or at least the entirety of the last 6 months, that is the bigger shift. But I don't know how you're going to summarize that again.
Yeah. Because it sounds like you really, the first 6 months, right, out of fear, out of instructional stuff from other people, and you are like doing for the sake of doing, like I have to do, I need to do.
Yeah.
But after there's this calibration within yourself, and I would want to question you and understand, right, what was the calibration, what was the direction? It sounds like the remaining 6 months is I want to do. And when you say I need to, I have to, it feels forced. Doesn't feel happy, it feels restraining. But when you say I want to do, there's a lot of freedom, liberty, which I think that's why you feel more happy. You genuinely enjoy this career. As a result of that, it brings you to that place. Share with us, right? How do you change your perspective about that intention, about that goal? And how did you recalibrate yourself actually? What do you do? For the audience listening to this, maybe some of you can resonate what she said, right? You are being forced by managers, by mentors, just do. How did you guide the audience, right, to find their own direction or a goal that excites them?
Okay, then this gets a bit like technical, right? Because that's the point where like I started looking out of the industry and like looking towards like coaching materials out there, reading more books, or to find some way to like structure my business. Because at the start, like, it's very haphazard prospecting. It's very haphazard appointments. And then if I'm not prospecting or if I'm not at appointments, I don't do anything else. But then that cannot be the entire business model, ma. Like, there must be more to that, right? And then the question of sustainability was always on my mind. So it was two things. It's like, how do I make my business sustainable? And how do I make this more structured? Right? And then, of course, I start to find people online or whoever who specialize in this kind of stuff. And I think that's where I realized that, actually being self-employed is a business in itself. And if you think today, right, if you were to sell, let's say you sell this phone, right? Your business is not just to sell this phone, it's to market the phone also.
Yes.
Is to do market survey, or I don't know, to figure out how to make this phone more appealing to people. So it's not just, hey, you want to buy this phone or not? Yeah, it's more than that, right? So with all these things, right, I realized that, actually there's more to this besides just meeting someone and like, yeah. And what this means is I need to work on my technical skills, right? Because I mean, in the first 6 months I met people, all these objections that come my way, it has to be there for a reason, what? And I also had like very huge imposter syndrome at the start. Because how can you pass 4 papers and then suddenly be an expert at managing someone's finances?
Yep.
Like it just doesn't make sense, lah. And so of course I had to brush up my competency on this area, right? Is to make sure that, I am able to address all these things related to money and finances. And that takes time,
Yes.
It takes time to find out more, to figure out how to actually plan for these things and to be savvy at it. And then if you look at a financial portfolio, there are so many other angles. Like you have investments, you have retirement planning, all these different things that we don't learn in school.
True.
You have to learn it once you join this industry. Right? And then it's really up to you how much time and effort you want to spend in these areas to make sure that whatever you plan out for someone makes sense. Right? So suddenly, see, got so many things to do already, right?
Yeah.
Not just prospecting and appointment, but all these things. And then if you think about like social media, how do you stay top of mind recall? Branding yourself. How do you get people to know that you're in this industry? Yeah, then suddenly, I guess like this really opened up my mind, which is, actually, there's a lot of things that needs to be done. What do I need to do now?
Yeah.
And then suddenly my day or my week just looks a bit clearer in terms of, okay, if I don't have any appointments today, let me work on these things.
Understand.
Yeah, and then after a while, this is the kind of clarity, right?
Yes.
Because you need to understand what you want your business to look like 10 years later.
Correct.
I don't want to be prospecting all the time 10 years later.
Yep.
I will want to reach a steady state whereby I still maintain the connections, the relationships I have, right? Existingly. It'll be, and then maybe focus solely on like getting referrals.
Understand.
Because these people trust you, and then as a byproduct, they refer people to you.
Correct.
Or how can I create an ecosystem such that I will always have active prospecting and passive leads coming in? Right? But if you don't take, these 2 things don't happen overnight,
Correct.
But this is the first step, right? You need to ask yourself first, like, actually, how do you want it to look like next time?
Correct.
And then you work backwards.
Beautifully said.
So then what do you need to do to get to that
get
stage?
there? Yes.
Right? So if you want to be referable, how? Right? Is it the way you talk to people? Are you likable? Are you trustworthy? Right? How are you managing their portfolios? Because at the end of the day, this is still it should be a competency-based industry lah.
Yes.
Right? Not just like emotionally selling or whatever.
Correct.
But whatever you recommend has to come from some sort of knowledge and expertise, right? So then if you are not at that stage yet, work on it lah. Or else how can people refer you? Because if you only do one thing, but then if their friends need something else,
Limited
already, right? So how can you make yourself more referable?
Yeah.
Or how can you ensure that whoever you meet, you can do something?
Well, wait, because I have a lot of things to digest in my mind. But I caught something very beautiful, you see. If I can really summarize the whole journey of whatever you've gone through, right, in this way, you correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing from you, right, is that the first 6 months in your career, right, you were really using brute force, mindlessly fear-based, a lot of insecurities within yourself, limited by your fear of rejection, fear of failures. Hence, despite that, because you're a high achiever, you burn the bridges, you don't want to let yourself down, you still can get 100K revenue. But I think that at that point of time, that's where you feel underappreciated, you feel shame, you feel pain. Then you're like, hey, this cannot be sustainable. If I go on like that, I will die.
Yeah.
That gave a very clear intention.
Yeah.
I must make sure 10 years from now, I also won't do this kind of thing.
Yeah.
I must be a person that they come to me
Mm.
because I do great work. I must be referable. So what can I do differently for the next 6 months and the remaining years so that I can prevent myself from going through the first 6 months of pain?
Yeah.
Does it sound like it?
Yeah.
And then that's where the rewiring, the emotional mastery, the mindset change, the belief change happened.
Yeah.
Which allow you to take the technical skill set to fly.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I mean, if you think about it, right, or if you look at it this way, it's more of what are you not happy with today?
Yeah.
And then from there, you dig deeper. So what is it that you don't like or
this
you
is
don't
something
enjoy?
that you never say last time. Dig deeper.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I use it all the time.
Yeah, share.
Yeah, but it's like you must first identify what is it about the career that you like and what is it that you don't like. Then if you don't like it, then what would you like it to be eventually? So ultimately, like everything needs to have some sort of plan.
Yes.
Because when we first join this industry, right, depending on who you join, you will hear different things. But you have to develop your own, I think you have to develop your own like narrative. I usually say like 要有自己的概念, like your own idea of your own idea of what financial planning should be like.
Philosophy as well. Yes.
Yeah, correct. Like how should it be for people and how do you want you to run your own business?
Understand.
But these two things don't come overnight and they don't come immediately, because you need to be lost a bit, you need to crash and burn a bit.
True.
Then you have to reflect, you have to take all these pieces and then finally realize, oh, actually, this is how I want to do things. Because whatever I did previously, don't work, not happy, blah, blah. Then that's when you try and create something new. And then from that, what do you need to do in this moment now? And then with all these different things that you now need to do in order to create this better future for yourself or this better like model for yourself, what are the different things, lor? Then that's where you have to free up your time.
Yes.
And then that's why I can say yes and no to certain things because I already know if the yes helps me in these areas, I'll do it. If it doesn't, then I'll say no lah.
Yeah. It sounds like you're way more clear.
Yeah.
And you're way more intentional right now, not coming from a place of fear or scarcity anymore.
Yeah, no.
Right, fantastic. And share with the audience, right, what were some of your proudest achievements or even breakthroughs that you have experienced the last 6 months? Because for those of you watching and listening to this, right, one of her struggle, right, is that she genuinely feel that she doesn't have any much achievements. That was one of the challenge that I discovered in her as well.
Yeah, I was going to say
that's why I'm trying to put her on the spot right now. What's your proudest achievement?
I was literally going to say that. You know me, I don't celebrate achievements.
Yes. If there's one.
I honestly don't have anything quantifiable that I would say. But last year in itself was such a long journey, right? You met me in April.
Yes.
Like I was down in the dumps. Then 2-3 months of work suddenly gave fruit or gave birth to this like rewired Mel. Like that journey in itself is that breakthrough.
That achievement.
Yeah, is that achievement because it literally lays the foundation for life.
Beautifully said. It sounds like the person that you became, that was your proudest achievement.
Yeah.
Because that is the thing, the person, right?
Yeah,
the vehicle that can bring you to the next 10 years.
I'm the Ferrari.
Yeah. You're the Ferrari. Fantastic. And share with us, right? So that, because if, what is the, if you don't mind sharing, right? What's the next milestone they are looking forward to actually?
Okay, milestone wise, very quantitative lah.
Yes.
Of course, I would love to hit my COT this year. I missed it a bit last year. Hurts a bit lah, but I mean it's over. Yeah, so that's one. And this year I would like to start building a team. I will focus on the second part more actually because when you first join this industry, right, I say that it's a legal MLM. Okay, I mean like it or not, it's true. It's a legal MLM, right? And I hear a lot of people always say like, oh, you should start recruiting ASAP. And then it's like, why? Right? Because then they see it as passive income. Then maybe one day they don't have to do sales. And then they just let the team do it themselves, right? I could never buy into that idea, right? Because firstly, I'm new myself. What right or like what kind of how can I say that I'm ready to lead someone when I can't even lead myself? Right? Like, how can I bring someone into this industry when I don't know everything myself either? I'm not in the headspace or the state to like groom and mentor people, ma. So then this idea of recruitment was always a very like distant. It was very distant. Like I cannot resonate with it.
Mm-hmm.
But gradually now I think, no lah, I know lah. You know, I think I know lah. I've done enough. I know enough now. I have a pretty good idea of what people must do or what must be done if you really want to succeed in this industry lah. But with that being said, I don't think this word success, it differs for everyone, right? My success could be different from yours.
Yes.
And I think the important thing is that it's not about like how much you earn or how many people you meet or whatever. The end state is for you to be happier than where you were previously.
I love it.
Right.
So happiness is the metric, not revenue.
Correct. Happiness is the matrix. And that is something that you have to discover for yourself. And with all the work that I've done, like internally and externally, I think I'm in a better place lah to start recruiting because I can finally say that if I were to recruit you or if you were to join me, I will leave you in a better place. Whatever that looks like for you lah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is why these two things are probably my main goals for the year. Then I think I got my work cut out for me already lah.
Yeah. And since we talk about leadership, we talk about recruitment and team building, right? I want to ask you, based on your own humble journey in the last 12 months, right? What are some powerful mental and emotional preparation a new advisor must have before you think that they can succeed really, really well in this career?
You must be like a cockroach that cannot die.
Perseverance.
Yeah.
Yes.
Perseverance, resilience.
Resilience.
I would say resilience, growth mindset.
Growth mindset.
Curiosity.
I love that. Curiosity.
Yeah.
And in terms of the emotion aspect, what do you think?
Radical transparency.
Oh, share with the audience. What do you mean by that?
Okay lah. I think that would be too cheap, but I think maybe emotionally wise, I think you have to be honest with yourself. Yeah, which is what radical transparency basically means.
And why is that important?
Okay, why I say that, right, is how do I explain it?
Because most managers, they just do. Why is emotional mastery or emotional, all this emotional preparation important?
No, I think mental states are very important, right? And the reality of this industry is that you are always constantly meeting people. If you are in a shitty headspace, the person you're meeting will feel it.
Oh, yes.
They might not, but you will feel it because you will feel even more drained after it, right? And then that sets you up for a burnout or like for you not doing anything in the next few days, right? So it's always very important to have like a very clear headspace. But how do you get a clear headspace? Is when if something bothers you, instead of like ignoring it or pushing it away until you cannot anymore, you just have to deal with it lah and say like, hey, actually what's bothering me? Because once you address the emotion or that thought in your head, right, you have that conversation with yourself and then you make peace with it and then you move on. Yeah, so I think like being honest with yourself helps with all of that rather than running away lah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a nice one. So just to sum up, because this is a bit too deep, too cheap, radical transparency, because this is something that I always push my guys. So if those of you listening to this, many times you don't want to embrace the emotions. For example, shame. For example, we just got rejected 7 times in a row. We feel worthless, rejected. And you really need to feel those emotions. Understand that, hey, shit, I really feel bad. That 7 rejections really, I didn't close anything. Instead of saying, it's okay lah, then you go and drink with your friends, go and play games and numb it down. And next thing you know, you're demoralized for the next few 3 weeks, right? So what Mel mentioned, and which is what she went through as well, instead of running away, instead of bearing the emotions, you really stare at it, which is very uncomfortable. Yeah. She also mentioned a lot of pain, right? Which I think that if you are listening, regardless what role you are playing in the society, right, this is something that is a very important skill set to master lah. And share with us, right, what impact do you wish to have on your clients in this industry? And how do you measure your own success actually? I know you mentioned your own success is your own happiness, but what about your success in this industry? Yeah,
Okay, we go in order. You
sure.
said clients industry,
first, and this industry and
myself.
yourself. Yes.
Okay, I think clients very straightforward. Is for them to know that everything is well taken care of by me. And then they can just go and focus on whatever it is that they want to focus on. Like the things that make them
travel.
happy. Yeah, correct. Because then it's like, Mel, can I do this? Yeah, sure, go for it. You can, like, it's within your budget, like, it's within your means. There's no negative impact on cash flow, but just do it. Then they know that, oh, I don't need to worry about anything because Mel has got it settled. Anything, just call Mel. She will have an answer for you. That is the level that I want to have.
Yep.
For the industry, that's too deep, man. Like,
Yeah.
I honestly don't think I am at that level to like, wow, I want to leave such a legacy and want to change the face of the industry. I think that's a bit too fluffy.
Let's talk about a team then.
Huh?
Let's talk about team. Yeah. What kind of success or impact you want to create for your team?
I think I would want to help them find out what really works for them. And I've done so much work on myself, right, that I feel like there's so much benefit to it. Like, I think we will all be happier people if we just took charge of our own emotions. Like if we can just own up to it and really manage ourselves from the inside, I think the world will be a better place, right? And then naturally it will translate, because if they are happier individuals, then they will be more self-directed. They will know what they want to do. Maybe once in a while need some like fine-tuning. Correct. But then they will be very self-sufficient and independent.
Yes.
And I mean, I don't believe in like micromanaging or what. Like, we're all adults. We're all self-employed. If you don't work, you don't get paid. That's simple enough. But I think I would want them to be happier individuals. And then, of course, my role is whatever you need.
I'll support.
I'll be there.
Yeah.
And like, it's like, if you say you want to reach this level, I'll do my 100% to get you there.
Beautiful.
But if you say that you're happy with where you are, that's fine with me also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like one point before you talk about your success yourself, right? You mentioned that I will find out what works for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's what our philosophy.
Yeah.
Because different folks need different strokes.
Yeah.
And I like that you never shove whatever works for you, right? Say, hey, this is my way. You all go and try.
No, cannot. People will die on.
Yes, I like that. Right? So you believe in the idea of personalization. Good. And what about your success? What are the kind of impact and success for yourself? What do you wish to have? What kind of impact you wish to do for yourself?
This question, like, one of my colleagues asked me this like literally 3 weeks ago.
Yes.
Say, Mel, where do you see yourself when you're 50 years old?
Yeah.
I stared at him blankly for I stared at him blankly. I'm just like, it's a very difficult thing for me to answer because when he asked me that same question, right, I was literally just thinking to myself, but 3 years ago I was
so different.
Yeah, I was so different, and now I'm just getting started. That everything in front is still very fuzzy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like maybe I can see next year, but I cannot see
too far.
Too far. Yeah, it's too far. But
in the next 1 year, let's say in the next 1 year, what kind of impact do you wish to have on yourself?
I think right now my journey is still a lot of this, right?
Yes.
And
a lot of these, but the audience cannot hear.
It's a lot of, it's like a roller coaster. Like, there are a lot of ups and downs. Maybe last time the downs stay down longer and whatever, right? And I've always said like, I want to be able to bounce back faster, or to prevent these downs from happening to the best of my ability. And that is still like one of my key metrics, right? Like, there's always a balance. I'm still trying to figure out what's my ideal work rate. How should I take care of myself? Like, when do I need a break? Like, how do I automate this?
Yes.
Right, because right now it's still like a
test and try and error.
Yeah. So that's maybe like for the next year.
Yeah.
Or who knows, a work in progress for as long as it takes, right? And of course, ideally, with whatever I said about how I want to have like a self-sustainable model, every year that happens, I have to be closer to that lah.
Yes.
In whatever shape and form that takes, like be it social media or referrals, whatever. So these are things that I hope
move towards.
Yeah, I have to move the needle lah.
Understand.
But of course, yeah, no, That's about it.
Yeah. If those of you listening and watching this, right, you can tell that there's a lot of a higher level of self-awareness when Mel shares, you see. When she was saying that I'm constantly testing to find out what works for me. Whether it's this amount of, effort to in terms of business, in terms of rest, what's the ratio like? And all of these things are extremely important. So if you do not know all these things about yourself, then how do you master yourself? Right? How do you play yourself? Because you are the vehicle to get to your destination. If you do not know how to drive this vehicle well, every time at gear one, but you can go to gear 4, then you're not using yourself to the maximum. And I think that's what Mel is demonstrating here. There's something I really respect and highly admire. And one last thing, what advice do you have for others, not just financial advisors, right, who are struggling to achieve their goals or even find success? What would you share with them?
Ask yourself first if that's truly the goal that you want. Yeah. Like, is it something that has been set for you, or is it something that you can genuinely resonate with? Because if it's the latter, then you won't feel so much resistance. And to be kinder on yourself lah.
I love that.
Yeah, like, I think as long as you're doing something every day, that's good enough. But then of course, and I mean, things like this have been said to death. Like, consistency is key. Like, Rome was not built in a day, that kind of stuff. But actually, all roads lead to Rome lah. Right? So it really doesn't matter how fast you get there. But as long as you are moving along every day and you are like sticking to the course, and you know that is really what you want, then naturally everything should flow. But if it's not, then you have to identify what's the bottleneck.
Yes.
And then it goes back to square one, right? Which is like, you have to be honest with yourself. Like, why isn't it working out? Yeah, then you have to start asking yourself all these questions to really troubleshoot it. And I think maybe the last thing is, don't be afraid to ask for help. Yeah. I mean, it's the same, right? Like, choosing to invest in myself and getting like external coaches was a huge financial investment.
Yes.
And for someone that has never done something like this before, it's like, oh my God, is this much? But then you think about it, yeah, I could spend 10 years, maybe I could spend 10 years struggling, trying, and I get there eventually, right? Or I can choose to invest in it, learn from people that have done it before, and do it in 1/4 of the time.
Yeah.
And then the remaining 3/4 is time that I've earned back. Yeah.
Well said. And those of you who enjoyed this entire podcast, right, and you want to find Mel, where can they find you at?
You can find me on Instagram at WholesomeMel.
Okay, awesome. And those of you who like this podcast and listen all the way to here, please like, share, and subscribe to our podcast. And we'll constantly interview more high achievers so that we can inspire you to get your respective breakthroughs. Thank you.
Solid.
High five.